Hi everyone, this video goes through sample items for 2022 and that's the ministry's item. We ask that you go through all items carefully. Now item 1 says here to examine this map below and use it to answer item 1. Here's a map of the world and it says which group originated from the areas labeled X and Y above. So X and Y, as you know, North America, South America, Africa, Europe is right in here, Asia is over here, and Australia is here. So it's really asking you which two groups came from Asia. A says Africans and Chinese, no. British and Africans for B, no. C says East Indians and British, no. D says East Indians and the Chinese, and that's correct. It's the East Indians and the Chinese that came from Asia. All right, number 2. Let's move on to number 2, and it says, read the passage below and use it to answer 2. They were not slaves. They were contract workers who agreed to work for a period known as indentureship in exchange for their passage to the New World. They came in search of new life in the Caribbean. A says East Indians, no. B says British. All right, let's move on to item 3. I'm going to go fast. Item 3 says Mr. Ramsarak left India in the late 1800s and migrated to Jamaica, which was a push factor for him. So anything that was making him leave India is his push factor, and it's poverty. A says poverty, B says job opportunities. No, he wasn't leaving because he had that. He was leaving to get that. C says hope for a better life, and D says a good weather condition. No, it was A, poverty pushed him out. All right, let's look at item 4. Which of the following is required at official ceremonies and meetings in Jamaica? A, displaying an image of the lignum vitae, no. B, displaying an image of the hummingbird, no. C, serving of the national dish, and D, playing and/or singing of the national anthem, and that is so. So this one is required at national or any official meetings. All right, let's look at item 5. Which statement provides the best reason for the change in the Jamaican coat of arms over the years? And best, all the reasons could be good, but which is the best? A says the coat of arms should look visibly appealing. B says it should be changed on a regular basis. C says we need it to be a reminder of slavery. And D says it needs to be changed so it reflects our history, resources, and our people. And that is true, which is D. All right, let's move to the next item, which is item 6. Your teacher gave you an assignment to find out Jamaica's reasons for seeking independence from Britain in 1962. Which question would be most likely asked, or would you most likely ask to get this information? A says you should ask when did Jamaica gain independence. B says how important was it for Jamaica to gain independence. C says from which country. And D says how have we grown since independence. The answer would be B, how important was it? That would give you the reasons why we wanted to move from under Britain's control. The answer is B. Next item, 7. Which event did Jamaica participate in on its path to independence? A says we joined forces with the US to defeat the Spanish soldiers in 1898. No, we did not. B says we became a republic in 1902. No. C says we joined the West Indies Federation in 1958. And D says we led a battle and defeated the British soldiers in 1865. No, the answer is C. We joined the West Indies Federation in 1958. We never stayed in it long, but remember Norman Manley went in. All right. Next item. Which of the following source would be most suitable for gathering information about the life and work of Marcus Garvey? A says a photo of Marcus. No. B says a song about Marcus. How long and detailed would that song have to be? C says the birth certificate of Marcus Garvey. And you have one, you know, that can't contain your life and work. And D says an autobiography of Marcus Garvey. And the answer is D. And remember, an autobiography is written by the person, him or herself, all right, about his or her life and work. All right, so the table here shows you two mountain peaks, Blues Peak and Mary's Peak, and we're seeing their height above the highest annual temperature, lowest annual temperature, height above sea level. So you look at all of these carefully and see the highest for each, the lowest for each of them, and how high above sea level each of them is. Why is Blues Peak cooler than Mary's Peak? A says Blues Peak and Mary's Peak are the same height. No, they're different in height. B says Blues Peak is higher than Mary's Peak. That is true, but let's read the others. C says Mary's Peak is higher than Blues Peak. That is wrong. Mary's Peak is lower. D says Mary's Peak and Blues Peak are far apart. Not necessarily far apart, but that the answer would be B. Blues Peak is higher than Mary's Peak. Let's move on to the next item. And it says, which human activity can negatively impact mountainous environment? A says replanting of trees. No, that's good. B says growing of cocoa trees. That helps. C says preserving forest reserve. That is great to do. D says removal of trees. So D is the negative one. Removing of the trees. That would negatively impact the environment in the mountains. Next item, 11. Here we have three sources. Let's read them fast. Blue and John Crow Mountains as source 1. National Park is a large area of natural forest where many animals are protected. Thinking of a forest reserve there. The region is a known habitat for the largest butterfly in the Western Hemisphere, the giant swallowtail butterfly. All right, whether it is hiking, I'm over to source 2, catching a glimpse of rare birds, exploring a coffee farm, or enjoying a picnic, Blue and John Crow Mountains National Park has an experience for everyone. Source 3. The Blue and John Crow Mountains offers refuge to maroons and therefore preserve the tangible cultural heritage associated with the maroon story. Here's a question. Which source or sources support the statement below? Here's a statement. Indigenous plants and animals have their homes in mountainous areas. Indigenous meaning where they originate from. Original home. Alright, so A says source 2 only. No. Think of the giant swallowtail bird. That's the only... That's native or indigenous. Source 3 only. Nothing is mentioned about animals and so in source 3, so it can't be. C says sources 1 and 2, and that's it. Rare birds, giant swallowtail, hummingbird. So the answer would be C, sources 1 and 2. All right, let's move on to the next item. Remember I told you I'm going fast. So next item is 12. And it says, there is evidence, you're using this to answer 12. There is evidence that we are losing some of our customs, traditions, national landmarks, and cultural expressions. Many of us do not respect our landmarks as we destroy and deface them. We must constantly promote our culture and make sure that it is passed on from one generation to the next. Which two options best state the problem being described in the article above? A says a loss of civic pride. B, cultural awareness has declined. C, increase in criminal activities. Nothing is mentioned of that. D, promotion of culture. All right. So the answer here would be A and B. We should see that there's a loss of civic pride and cultural awareness has declined. So it's A and B. Moving on to the next item, which is item 13. We have, it says, indicate which country was held by each leader in the journey to independence. To Saint Lavator, that's Mr. Haiti. Norman Manley, Sir Jamaica. Jose Marti, Cuba. Alexander, definitely Jamaica. So remember, for Jamaica's fight to independence, we had three of them, Buster, Norman Manley, and Marcus. For Haiti, we have Jean Dessalines, and we have Toussaint Louverture. For Cuba, we have Jose Marti Carlos, and we have Carlos. They often have like 3 for each, but 2 main ones for Haiti, 2 main ones for Cuba, and 3 for Jamaica. All right, source 1, East Indian cultural contributions. They have delightful dishes, which is Korean roti, religious festivals, which is the Diwali, owners of jewelry store. Source 2, Chinese cultural contributions, tasted dishes, sweet and sour, Chinese New Year celebrations, and they have owners of grocery stores. For each statement, indicate whether the information can be found in source 1, source 2, or both sources. Some ethnic groups have made significant contributions to the Jamaican economy. And of course, it's both sources, because you can see it's clear here, both sources. Some ethnic groups celebrate secular festival. Which of them? Diwali, is it a secular festival? Chinese New Year, is it a secular festival? You have to know these. So, which is a secular, which is a religious festival? We're looking at item 13, I think item 14, that's how far we reach. So, which is a secular festival, which is a religious festival? All right. Some ethnic groups have made contributions, that is C, we know that's true. Which is a secular festival, Chinese New Year. The Diwali is a religious festival. All right, so it's CB. Let's look at number 15. I think it's the last one on the paper. We have mountains are important to man. That's a statement. I need to use it to answer item 15. Read each explanation in the table below and indicate whether it supports or does not support the statement. So statement here says, and remember the statement is mountains are important to man. First statement, they are ideal for the production of some crops. Does that support it? Of course it does. Important to man, crops, yeah. Man would have to plant the crops and we eat from the crops. Second statement, they contribute to increased rainfall. Of course, the higher you go, the more rainfall. Third statement, they are ideal for rearing cattle. Not suggested in the statement, not backed by the statement, so that would be does not support. And that ends our paper. We've gone through 15 items. Please go through them and give your feedback. All right, I'll see you in the next one.